Under the BOP, we have what is called services.
those
Now,
ambitions that we
if
have
we allow people to
tried
begin
for
to
long.
use
This is an
debit
agreement that
cards
is,
for the
we've
payment
tried
of
to
school
get
fees,
since
as a country, we
Copenhagen.
We're
will
getting
not.
that interference again. We would come back to you. I do hope our producers can help sort this out real quickly so that we can stop hearing that sound behind there. Please, we'll come back to you. Just hang on a moment. Mr. Ademoso.
Yes, please.
You work in the payment platform service. After what we're going through now, what measures do you think the banks will be wanting to put up again? Because at the end of the day, we still have more money in the hands of people and in their houses than in the banks. So the cashless policy, would you say has been effective?
Oh yeah, cashless has been, to all intents and purpose, and the reason why CBN brought it up, has been a very successful thing. And you'd agree with me that today the pervasive nature of cards in Nigeria is even why we're having this conversation. If cards were not pervasive, you wouldn't be having conversations about using the cards abroad anyways. So you'd agree that to some extent, and to a large extent, if I may say so, that the cashless policy has changed mindsets in Nigeria, has changed. Now, what the concerns will be now would be, you have helped me, I've brought my money into the industry, not saying I can't access my funds. And that's the concern that most of us have as customers of banks, that I have children abroad, I want to take them to school, I want to do this shopping, I want to make that payment, and I can't do it. And what I think the director was saying, I was alluding to, is that you need documentation. Just like you cannot import with your debit card. That's not the right documentation, or that's not the right channel. You need a Form M. For schooling, you need a Form A. You're not precluded from doing international transactions. I don't think that's what the banks are saying.
Yeah.
But the banks are saying, if you must do it, then do it through the proper channel. Do it through the appropriate channel. And when you do that through the appropriate channel, you'll get the service that you require.
That means you won't just get up and use your account to do any transaction.
No,
you just have to...
You have to go through proper documentation so that statistics can be available to the different agencies that will require those statistics.
But the question that some people are asking is, what about those that have monies already, physical cash, kept in their homes, foreign currencies? How would that work out?
Okay, so you have foreign currencies in your home and you want to take it out of Nigeria. So you'll know that there is a problem with that in the first place. There are different agencies of government at the airports that won't allow you carry that out. So it's a catch-22. What do you want to build first? Do you want to build a sane environment before the person? Or you want to build a person who is happy doing his business within an environment that is not sane?
Let's get back to Mr. Tule for this last question, Mr. Tule. Now, the CBN has been criticized for continuing to defend the Naira. Now, what they're saying is that instead of such restrictions or counter restrictions, what the CBN should be looking at is tax policies like tax incentives, production subsidy. These things should be put in place. So is the CBN advising the government in this direction beyond just restrictions?
Thank you very much. The Central Bank of Nigeria is doing its responsibility. We do not have responsibility for tax policies or for policies that are designed to increase aggregate output. Firm responsibility is ensuring price stability. Within that context, that is what we are doing. And we're also managing the foreign exchange within the ambit of available resources. Now, against that backdrop, may I just say that a key mandate of the central bank is to be as an economic advisor to the federal government, and there's no evidence that the central bank is not doing that. The central bank is doing that, and in the course of doing that, we cannot go on the pages of newspapers and be telling Nigerians that we advise government to do this and government didn't do. We advise government to do this and government didn't do. When you give advice, you give advice responsibly, and the central bank is doing that, carrying out that mandate responsibly within the context of the mandate it has. So we are doing that.
All right, thank you very much, Mr.
Sorry, if you listen to the president's interaction recently with Nigerians, he made allusion to the fact that he's on top of the issues as far as the developers in the foreign exchange market are concerned, which means the president has been properly advised.
Okay, Mr. Tule, we have some questions from Nigerians. Let me see if we can put two across to you. Hope says, I have two accounts in two banks. I got mails from them this week. One reduced my capacity to $500 a month, the other to zero, not 2,000. Is that the situation? Is that what it should be?
We don't know what details are. We don't know what kind of information your bank made available to you uh, before placing those limits on you. If we had the benefits of knowing what the issues are and why the bank should do that, we could then probably advise. But in the absence of that, it's impossible for us to intervene in that relationship between you and the bank. But you do know that if there are issues around your operation of your account, and if you have your data correct, you can present them to your bank. It is failure which you can then present your problem to the central bank. But in the absence of those details, I'm afraid we're not in a position to prescribe what you can do with your bank or what you cannot do. We'll just advise that you could just as well go back to your bank and demand to know what the issues are. And if you are not satisfied, then you can write to the Consumer Protection Department of the Central Bank of Nigeria.
All right, Doyum says, so we can't do vacations overseas. How do we pay for hotels and all that?
You can do vacation overseas. You still have your PTA, you still have your BTA, you still have your DOM account. I mean, and those things have no restrictions with respect to if you have your DOM account, you can use, it's a dollar denominated account, which you can also use overseas. But if you want to import, then you must do full documentation. If you go on vacation and you are having to spend $300,000, $500,000, $1 million, of course, the authorities should be in a position to ask you whether you paid your correct taxes for you to afford a vacation where you are spending $1 million. I mean, and that is done everywhere, in every country in the world, it is done. So we cannot be an exception. We are not saying you can't do vacation abroad. You can do vacation abroad, but definitely not with your Naira debit card. You can use your foreign currency denominated accounts.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Tule. We do wish you well, but we're not done with the conversations on the BVN, so if you're still there, you'll have to weigh in on this. This one comes from Leke. Leke says, what measures will be taken against accounts that are not linked to the BVN? Would the money be forfeited to the federal government?
Accounts that are not linked to BVN, that means you can't operate those accounts. And it's just like dividends, unclaimed dividends. There are laws in the country around that, and the central bank will bring out definite regulations within the ambit of its mandate around accounts that have been abandoned by banks. In banks, or just you might even look at people that have died interstate, whose relations don't even know that they have bank accounts. Some of those bank accounts are existing in banks up to date. Some of the people may have died 30 years ago, but the accounts are there. They are dormant accounts. There are laws around that. So when an account has not been operated in the bank for some time, it becomes dormant, and the banks know exactly what to do.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Tule. Now, Mr. Ademosun, just before we let you go, this one question. Is there a means, Mercy John is asking, Mercy John, is there a means to identify those who register BVN more than once with different names in different banks?
Oh, yes. You can't, because we don't use your name. We use basically your biometrics, your fingerprints and your face. And technology has proven that you can't have one person or two people having the same biometrics, right? And you, as NATO, cannot have my biometrics, for instance. So you can't claim to be me, and I cannot claim to be you. And so with the biometrics that we have introduced, assigning that biometrics with a unique identifier, which we call the BVN, we believe it is a ring fence, And nothing is foolproof, right? Nothing is 100%, if you understand what I mean. But it's going to be very, very big ask for you to prove that one person has two.
So what happens when that happens, when you have those multiple names? What happens?
Yeah, you have
All
to
of them
collapse
will-
into one.
It will automatically?
Not
Or
automatically.
the individual have to
The individual. So you have an account, maybe in 5 banks, and you've been enrolled as you, right? And so you go to each of the other banks to give them your BVN. When they get there, they'll find out that, oh, but on this account, Sheyi is the name that we see, not this other name. And so you have to answer some questions to answer why, in the first place, that account was bearing Sheyi.
Okay.
If they are comfortable with that explanation, then they will advise you on what to do. You will now have to say, yes, I would like it to be changed to this name rather than Sheyi. But you cannot continue to have that.
Different names.
You can't. And that's where we are on the project. I'd just like to use this opportunity to also sensitize everybody. There are about 22.8 million people that have registered that have a BVN today. But of course, we know we have over 50 million customer accounts, meaning that some of these accounts need to be linked. And if you don't link, right, you won't do transactions at some point in time.
All right. Thank you very much,
You're
Mr. Oluseyi Ademosun, Payment Platform Operations. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, sir.
And from our Abuja studios, we have Moses Tule, Director, Monetary Policy Department of the CBN. Thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Sunrise will be back in a moment. Don't go away.